Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to the call. Thanks so much for being with us. Today, we're talking about Google Analytics, specifically as it refers to real estate agent websites. Real estate agent websites are a little tricky because, well, they're a little bit more complicated to track than your typical website. Even harder, in fact, sometimes than e-commerce sites, which have a ton of products. The difference being that in most of our real estate sites, we've got something called the IDX, which pipes the data through, it's kind of the connection from the local MLS to the website. The end result is that it can sometimes be very, very challenging. It's getting easier, but it's still tricky. So what we want to talk about today is Google Analytics, what it is, what it isn't, answer some questions about an overview, kind of show you some different ways you can get at what you're hoping to find. Also, a lot of just hard-won tricks from staring at these reports for many, many years. My name is Ryan Rockwood. At Virtual Results, we're committed to helping real estate agents take their marketing to the next level. Whether you're an individual agent, whether you're a team, whether you're an entire brokerage, we've got programs in place, including websites, including marketing programs, analytics, and otherwise that can help you take your online efforts to the next level. Anyway, let's get started. Thanks so much for being with us. Of course, you're muted. You cannot speak. This webinar, probably 45 minutes at the most. In most cases here, you can always get a copy of this presentation. So you don't have to sit and desperately scroll things down. We're going to be putting this up, I believe, certainly at support.virtualresults.com, but also at virtualresults.com/analytics. You'll be able to get a copy of this, and we'll do a transcript and stuff. The idea here is I find it's far more helpful to sit back, relax, get in your head a concept of what's going on. In particular, would you like to do this? Would you like to do that? The key thing here is that you don't have to do everything, and analytics is far better when you're approaching your analytics with a question that it can answer, as opposed to going to your analytics and seeking insights from whatever presents itself. If you have questions, you either get an answer or you don't. If you're seeking insights, you can really get mired in a lot of information there. So what is analytics? Analytics is basically just our ways to track what's happening. Could be online, could be offline, whatever. In the online world, we're talking about what pages did people view? How long did they view? Where did they come from? Where did they go? Okay, and ultimately, where did our best people come from? Because if we're advertising on Facebook and AdWords, and our best people are from one of those sources, meaning our highest conversions and our highest closings of sales, wouldn't it be nice to know that and respond accordingly? So we're going to talk today about why it's essential, commonly used and misunderstood terms, determining actionable analytics data. We're going to talk about the ABCs of the Google Analytics dashboard. Also talk about effective reporting and how to navigate conversions and goals. Now, this kind of stuff sounds technical, but this is really not a technical webinar. This is designed for the individual agent who runs their own website, who has their own website, and is just curious. How do I get more? I don't want to be the this particular agent who's watching this, probably agent or broker, probably doesn't want to be, I don't know, at the whim of whatever random analytics program they get. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of information out there, and a ton of it is wrong, including people who misunderstand their own reports and get reports that perhaps kind of tell half the story. So we're going to talk about that and encourage you to help you get to the bottom of that. Basically, internet, I mean, obviously to internet marketing, tracking is pretty important, because if you're going to be spending money, you want to make sure that it pays off. And the truth is that most of this kind of happens in a not so analytical fashion. What happens is you spend $800 a month with Zillow, and you're kind of aware that you get 3 to 10 leads, and you're kind of aware that you close one of those leads max per month, and you're kind of aware that it pays off, and it's not close exactly, so you're happy with it at the end of the year. That's kind of what normally happens, whether it's Zillow, whether it's AdWords, whether it's Facebook. And the truth is that if that's how you feel about it, that's honestly just fine. There's no award given out to the agent or broker who knows to the dollar the ROI on their campaigns. I mean, the truth is that in most cases, if it's clearly a win, we're fine with it, right? We don't need to know if it's a 10 or 12% return, right? So, but there are situations that are less clear. For example, you advertise in a magazine. Is that valuable to you? Will you get some calls? Where exactly do they come from? I'm not sure. Okay. You put up signs. Maybe you might have a billboard. Maybe you might have a display ad. What is this? Now, analytics can't track all of these things without you jumping through some hoops. For example, if you want analytics to track your phone number, you're going to have to use a tracking phone number. If you want analytics to track your website from your print ad, you better use a special URL that is only used on that ad, and so on. Okay, but what we're going to be talking about here is measuring the motivation behaviors of our users, figuring out what's good and bad on our site, trying to improve it, and obviously judging our marketing strategies based on the 2 points above. Okay, so basically you've got a couple ideas in Google Analytics, and if it's, well, in anything really, and these are really important to kind of nail down, and also they're not exactly steady. This says traffic in the time that since we wrote this, well, no, really in the last couple of months, I believe traffic is still out there, traffic is still a thing, but I believe they've gone to reporting what they call sessions, and that is a slightly different thing. So someone says, oh, I get 100,000 page views a month, and you say, well, gosh, I feel kind of bad. I only get 3,000 visitors a month, or I only get 5,000 sessions a month. Well, those are all three completely different things. You're comparing apples to oranges. There's no comparison. One's a higher number, yes, but we're smart guys and gals. We're not going to be just wowed. Anyone can throw out a high number. So we want to get our terminology straight. And you can say, well, that's interesting that you get so many page views. I don't track page views. Do you know how many users you get to the site? And then you can start talking about apples to apples. With traffic, so anyway, traffic's a little bit outdated. Let's talk about sessions, visits, and unique visits. Okay. With conversions, the idea of people say, well, what's a conversion? A conversion is whatever you want it to be. It's really up to you. There's no rules. But basically, typically, people consider a conversion when someone does something online that you want them to do. It could be as simple as downloading your buyer's guide. It could be filling out a form. It could be giving their name and email. Scheduling a showing could be a conversion. Okay, so you could have many conversions, and all conversions are not equal. For example, someone might say, well, I have 20,000 conversions on my website, and one of their conversions may be that they have someone who stays on the website longer than 30 seconds. Okay, if someone has 20,000 conversions of that, and someone else has 10 conversions, which are people who scheduled a showing, which are better? Well, it's impossible to say, right? They're apples and oranges. Either one could be better. We just don't know until we're talking about the same thing. Bounce rate. Bounce rate in Google Analytics, darn, I wish I had the exact definition, but it's something like, oh, well, I do have the exact definition. In many analytics programs, it's someone who only visited a page or only visited the site for 20 seconds or something like that, right? In Google Analytics, bounce rate's a little different. If someone went to your site and found all the information they needed on the first page of the site and spent 30 minutes on that site, that would be counted as a bounce rate. Okay, so that's very, very important. In many people's mind, a bounce rate is someone, because it's ultimately someone who did not continue on the site on Google Analytics. And that's not good. Obviously, we want more people to spend more time on the site. However, it's not exactly always a failure. There's a giant number of people that Google you for your phone number every single time they call you. I'm probably guilty of that. I really don't, I've got, a couple contacts in my phone. That's it. It's just a matter of how you work and what your own habits are. So anyway, if I Google you and I get your phone number, this is not a failure. You really can't do anything else on your part. You could be, possibly giving out $100 bills on that page, and I wouldn't really care because I've got the phone number and I'm not reading that page any further. It's over. So that's bounce rate. Goal. Goals are anything that you decide is a completed or desired action on your site. That could be staying on the website a certain amount of time. That could be downloading something, giving up your name and info. Typically, a goal is going to be, at its simplest, someone who self-identifies. They give you their email address at a minimum. Okay. So with Google Analytics, you always have to, well, with any analytics, you have to figure out what it is you want to know. If you go to Google Analytics and someone shoves that report under your nose and says, check out your Google Analytics, it's really, really hard to find anything other than sort of a very shallow, cursory sort of, oh, well, I'll be darned, Analytics generally are completely worthless without context, and that's a super important thing to learn and to always remember. Someone who says, I got 100 visitors to my site last month could be doing amazing, or they could be in the doghouse. What we really need to know is, at a minimum, what did they get last month? Ideally, we want to know what they got last year at that during that same time period. That's actually more valuable, but not everyone has a year or more worth of data on file. So does that make sense to you? In other words, if I got 50 people on my website last month and this month I got 100, it's all about percentages, right? You can only grow from where you are. So you can't really get bummed out, oh, I don't have 5,000 people. No, you have to say, oh my gosh, I doubled my traffic. Like, it doesn't get better than that. So keep that in mind as you, I don't know, kind of, continue on the route of your online marketing journey, and you're going to find people everywhere that get 50,000 visitors a day or blah, 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 Not only are they probably always wrong, but it really is irrelevant because they don't tell you, oh yeah, and I spent $25,000 on marketing last month. Like all, what I mean? So it really is an individual thing. It's all about context to determine success. And the different website goals that people commonly have is increased traffic, increased conversions, or engagement maybe. And see this column over here on the right, the key performance indicators? These are often called KPIs. Just a business term, things that you want to track. It doesn't really matter what you track. You could track the number of visitors, the number of unique visitors, the blog subscriptions. Essentially, to some degree, it's irrelevant. You could just pick what you want. The key is that you're always measuring the same KPIs. You'll find people that month to month switch to whatever KPI benefits them or is improving or is declining, and they're focused on it. And the truth is that you have to be looking at the same ones, working on those, and comparing them to evaluate success. Okay. So a couple of the key performance indicators are indicated here on the right. Now let's get into it. I know everyone wants to get into the analytics dashboard, and you should. You should be really comfortable with the analytics dashboard. What we're going to be talking about is audience, acquisition, behavior and conversions. Okay, we're going to be talking about who is visiting your site. How did they get there? What are they doing? Or I'm sorry, where did they go once they got there on the site? And ultimately, what did they do on the site if we got any conversions out of them? Okay. Let's jump right into it. The audience is your first stop in the Google Analytics journey. And lucky for you guys, I've got a sample. Let me pull it up. Here we go. I have to minimize to see it. So lucky for you guys, I've got something called a Google Analytics demo account, which is really cool because you always want to show these, but nobody really wants to show their own traffic and so on. Also, when you first start out with Google Analytics, there's not a lot of info, like there's no information. Like this shows, oh, 1,900 sessions in one day. Well, you're going to have 5 when you start out. And when there's not much data, it's a little discouraging. So if you want to get this, go ahead and just Google something like Google Analytics demo account. There's a page, you read a little bit of instructions, you click on it, and it will add it to your Google Analytics account. If you don't have a Google Analytics account, go and open one, it's free. You can have hundreds of Google Analytics accounts under your purview. So here's the cool thing about this. Let's take a look at this. What we're talking about here, the way we've broken it down, audience acquisition, behavior, conversions. Remember those things that we talked about? Whenever you get confused, whenever you're at a loss of Google Analytics, I always come back to audience. It's kind of like my dashboard where you're like, okay, where the heck am I? Okay, I want to get oriented. So your dashboard, it's really kind of your first stop here, the overview, talking about your sessions, your users, your page views, pages. These are all the KPIs that people commonly look at. And you do not need to actually set these up. These are all there. Now, you could set up any that you want or what have you, but the nice thing about it is Google Analytics knows, well, everyone's pretty interested in the users and page views and da-da-da-da-da. And you could drill down and get more information as well. But when you go to the audience view, what you see is obviously this, this view that I just showed you. The cool thing about Google Analytics is you don't have to be worried about breaking anything. You can click around, you can drill in, you can drill out. You can click here, this overview. Under the overview tab, there's these sessions, and you see these things right here under the sessions drop down here. I mean, you can see down here it says sessions, users, page views. Well, when it defaults, it's for everything, all visitor types. But let's say, for example, that you wanted to see this overview for something else, like you only wanted to view new sessions or durations or something. The point is, you can drill all this down, and your stats here will change as a result of it. There's other ways to access it too. For example, if I go back to sessions here and I go to page views, that's another way to do it. I can start to track the pages per session. And the other thing I could do here is all users are up here. I'm sorry, I jumped around, but what I meant to say is right now I'm looking at all users. What I can also do is decide to see a subset of that. You know what? I only want to see direct traffic. And that means traffic that they typed in the site. Okay, I only want to see, and what it shows you is here's the direct traffic, and here is the all users, and then so you've got you've got different points here. This one makes a lot more sense because we're seeing a lot less direct traffic. These are people who typed in the website, and these are people who came via another source. Direct traffic's always going to be not one of your highest sources of traffic typically, unless you're just getting started. So anyway, you've got drill downs here, you've got drill downs here to control this, and you can also go down here through things like demographics. I want to see what percentage of people came to the site that were 25 to 34 years old. Oh, well, that's interesting. 40% of my people were. Okay, now let's look at the direct traffic. 42% of the people. So more people in this age group are coming to the site directly. Well, that's interesting, or it's not, right? Now, if I wanted to place an ad, I might target people in this age group versus, and I might eliminate these other people because these other people don't seem to be as interested in my site. Or if I'm looking to expand my audience, I might say, you know what, I'm pretty suckage in the 45 to 54 group. Let's do some ads specifically targeted to these people and see if we can't grow this because we've got great product offerings for them. Gotcha. So you've got demographics, age, gender. You even got some things like interest lists where you might say, oh, well, this is really interesting. A lot of people that visit my site are technophiles, movie lovers, so on and so forth. Now, this is all interesting and ultimately navel-gazing unless you do something with it. And you can see here, see the breakdown of how it differs from direct traffic. Now, direct traffic, I wonder if there's anything that we can pick that might give us a little bit more interesting comparisons. Okay, so this is the traffic of people that visited the site and well, it's everyone. And this is the people that bounced, meaning they only saw one page. And I would be interested to see here, I would be interested to find a group of people that bounce more than others. I really don't. It seems to be pretty consistent with the people who do visit the site. But what I'd be looking for, obviously, is a greater percentage of people that bounce so I can address their concerns or stop targeting them so they're not getting to my site, my ads aren't getting served to them, and so on. Okay, we're talking about interest lists. Also, geography is always important. In real estate, it's a little bit less important than it is to most people, but isn't this interesting? All of my users are targeted here, right? And I can also see where my bounced users are coming from. Similarly, I might want to avoid some of these regions. However, my most trafficked spots and my most bounced spots are the same. Now, what is very important here for real estate agents typically is that your traffic is coming much more local than at this country level, okay? Because you don't sell countrywide unless you're in some sort of resort community, and even that's, you know, typically less common. So what we want to do really here is we want to see, you know what, I'm really interested in, as you can see, most people are coming from Mountain View. You know, ultimately what I'm really interested in here is I want to make sure that if I've got a town called Maplewood, that people aren't visiting trying to find Maplewood, Arkansas, and they're coming. So this is what this can help me with, because if my ads or whatever are going to people, you know, targeting the wrong city, in other words, the city names are the same and so on, I want to try to eliminate those people. I want to change that. Alternatively, if I identify, wow, you know what, Asian or European buyers are really hot and I see more and more traffic coming to my site from these areas, it may be time, it may be wise to put up some content for them. Okay. Behaviors here, we see new versus returning, frequency, engagement, that's kind of like, you know, how many times did they click around or share or do something like that. And you can see all of these kind of stats. You can also come up here and you can say, okay, last 30 days, today, yesterday, you can do, and again, remember what I told you, if I'm going to say, how did I do this month, let's get rid of this for distraction. Okay, if I'm going to say, oops, if I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, hey, how did I do this month? I really can't go in and say, well, we had 58,000 users. Isn't that fantabulous? Well, yeah, I guess. But let's get our comparison. Previous period. You could do custom previous period. So you should really always try to have a comparison period up if you can. For example, I can see here that I increased a little bit in regards to sessions. I increased a little bit in regards to users. I decreased a little bit in number of page views. Anyway, now I know whether I did better or worse. Does that make sense? Let's compare it to the previous year. Oh my. Here, I thought I was so dandy because I had 60,000 users, but look at last year at this time I had 75. I'm the worst ever, right? But people are staying on the site longer. There's a silver lining there. So anyway, this is the all-important context in which you can evaluate well, whether you could see your analytics or you can evaluate your performance with analytics. I hope I said that right because it was just off the top of my head. You've got two choices. You can see it or you can you can evaluate your performance. Whatever you're looking to do is fine, but you just want to make sure that you're doing the right thing. Too often people come into the boardroom and they say, hey, great, we got 100,000 visitors, and everyone goes, yay! And the IT guy mumbles, yeah, but we got 200,000 last year at this time. Yeah. So you want to make sure that your good is good and your bad is bad. All right, so I should jump back to this presentation that we have, so I make sure that I follow this a little bit orderly. So we've talked about the demographics, we've talked about geography. You could drill down to cities and see where they're coming from. You can see behavior. How many seconds did they stay on the site? How many pages, what pages, and so on and so forth. You can drill down into that. One very interesting metric is the mobile versus desktop. Okay, the way Google Analytics breaks it down, you've got desktop, you've got mobile, and tablet, and that's how they break it down. And you can look at it, you can always see your sessions. New sessions are people who haven't been to the site before, and then sessions are people who've been to the site before and returning and new people. So let's look at just everyone. We've got 74% of the visitors is on desktop. Pretty unusual these days. This site that this snapshot is taken from is fairly unusual. What we see normally is that in real estate anyway, it's really common to have about 50 to 60% of your visitors on desktop still. The rest are split up between mobile and tablet. And what this can tell you to do is whether or not it makes sense for you to invest in a better website for mobile or tablet or desktop, or all of them. Okay, so we've talked about audience, acquisition. Oh, was that whole audience? Oh gosh, I think it was. Okay, so now let's go to acquisition. Acquisition is just what it sounds like. How did you acquire these good folks? It may have been through an organic search. It may have come direct. They typed it in. It may have been a referral from another site or social. You can drill down. You can see how they came in. Very, very important to people is the keywords that people came in on. Now, I will tell you, Google made a change. Now it's old news. 5 or 6 years ago, and they stopped showing the keywords for people if they were logged in. What that means is the largest percentage of keywords to your site will show as not provided. That means that anytime I'm searching Google and I'm logged into Google, all my traffic is encrypted, and as a privacy thing, they claim it's a privacy thing. They they don't show it to you. For internet marketers, that was a great loss. Obviously, the most people that came in from a keyword, we really don't know what it is. And there's various ways of handling this. One of the most common is just to assume that the keywords that you do see are reflective of these keywords here, but the sessions obviously aren't. Let's take a look at acquisition in the wild and just see if it brings up any surprises for us. The good thing about this site is this test account is that it's got a ton of information in it, so which is great because I see organic, direct, social, referral, affiliates, paid search, display, and if you have your own acquisition, like you can actually create it right here if you want. Now notice this doesn't say Google search. This says organic search. So at this level, the sources, the acquisition sources, are broken down by category versus vendor or whatever you'd call it. Let's drill down. We've got in organics, we've got the keywords, okay, but let's not go there first. Let's look at the source first, okay. Well, Google, Bing, nothing unexpected here. I think this is a Russian search engine, and these are just little crawlers that do their little thing. Nothing unexpected here, but you can kind of see that we've got a elephant in the room. Like if we lost everything underneath line 1, frankly, no one's going to even notice. Unfortunately. So anyway, that just helps you with your strategies and so on. So anyway, we can drill down in there. We can do, we can see things like keywords and so on and so forth. Tree maps, I haven't really messed with this. I can't really, you might find something valuable here, but I'd be impressed if you did. Source medium, by far, is the most valuable in my mind. As a quick snapshot, you need them all, but Google cost per click, that's AdWords pay per click. I see at a glance. Okay, boom, that's super interesting. And then I've got my conversions over here, and we can see that I've got it brought me 394 completions. And I know that I spent $10,000 on that, so I can divide that up and I can get my per goal, right? And I can get at some stuff. Google Organic, you'll find things like this this is a email link. They call it a referral because someone got an email, clicked on it, and they went there. This is from the site, analyticsgoogle.com, because, like me, people Googled it, found the demo site, and went to the website. These guys must have an affiliate program. I wouldn't be surprised if we can go here and we could actually see the affiliates. They might be kind of coded by ID or something. Let's see. But let's not get into the weeds. But it's pretty interesting stuff. And if you do advertise on AdWords and you connect your account, which you need to do if you advertise on AdWords, the information will pump right in here. You'll see, oh, okay, this campaign right here, this accessories campaign, cost me $56, and goal conversion rate doesn't really help me that much, but goal completions do. And I can see that I can add a column here for total spent, and I can see price per goal completions. Oh, cost is right here. So $78 and that's great, huh? For that one, $78 for that one, $56. Oh my gosh, So, but who knows what they're counting as goals? So we do have to be a little cautious about judging that as a success. Hour of the day, search queries, search console. You can hook this up to Google Webmaster Tools, which is a good idea. And Now, of course, everyone's interested in social to a large extent. So people want to drill down by their social network, and they want to see, okay, well, how much did YouTube get me? How much did Facebook get me? And so on. And that is a quick way. Now, like a lot of things, analytics allows you 4 or 5 ways to get to the same thing. So when I'm looking, everything for social, you don't go here. You might want to know how many conversions did I get by social, and in that you go to a different area to drill down faster. But there are, look at it, but here you can also get it to here. Now this is an aggregate number conversion. So hope that, in other words, there's no right or wrong way to get to it. There's a lot of different ways. Okay, so popping back here, that was a pretty thorough discussion of acquisition. Let's jump into behavior. Behavior is what pages. You'll see the / simply means the home page of your website, typically. You can set this up so it actually shows your, what they call your root domain. But that's totally optional. In most cases, it'll be set up like this. And you'll see, specifically for those of you that have a subdomain IDX, this is your home page, and this is actually the page on your subdomain. Very important. You may or may not want it to look like that, so just be aware of that. You can know by the URL structure. So the way that this Google Analytics is set up, which is the way it probably should be, is that Google doesn't really know if it goes on your IDX subdomain or not. It considers it all one site, and that's probably good because you don't really want to count a referral when someone comes back and forth between your subdomain and your main site. You want to track it as page views on your site. So what we can do here is we can see the pages, site content, graphs, and so on. We can also create an annotation, not just in behavior. I believe you can do this anywhere. You can kind of, I think what you do is you either double click on this dot, you get a dot and you double click it, and I think this will appear and you could create a little note. Super helpful, especially when you're trying to troubleshoot something. A lot of times what I'll do is when I'm trying to make goals work in Google Analytics, I'll go in, make a goal, make a note, and say it should work as of this day. Then when I come back a week or a month later or whatever, I can go back and judge. Does it look like it's consistent since that day? Has something else come up that's caused a problem? Now, conversion is really interesting and not often used because it's harder. What we want to do with conversion is just define a goal, and that's not always the easiest thing. For example, a lot of times we'll have a form, and the form will just refresh and say thank you. It doesn't go to a destination page that could easily be counted as a conversion. So there are some challenges. But by far, it's probably of the most interest to us, so let's spend a little time on it. With conversions, you can see, obviously, the goal completion location, where they actually completed the pages. This goal was a completion of a home valuation. Okay, and you can even see the actual addresses where it happened. We can go on and we can see the goal flow. We can click the source and see, oh, well, 43 came from direct, and then they came down here, and a certain number will drop off at every stage. That can be handy, but it is kind of obscure. So let's talk about what's probably most common and most valuable to you. There are a couple types of different reports. You can see a time graph, a stats table, or a map overlay, and a lot of times people are going to want one of each, not for the same metric, but each metric will kind of call for its own report. For example, a report showing areas around the world where you get traffic from is just kind of calling for a map. Showing traffic over time is calling for a time graph. Calling for total page views this month, you might just want to see a number. So let's get into how we might develop some of that stuff. We've already talked about how you get at your quote-unquote reports. And reports honestly can be nothing more than looking at a page like this. There's your report. You can always come up here to export the PDF, and boom, you've got a report. Or you can get more specific, and you can schedule these and add different elements to them and so on. I would recommend that especially when you're getting started, limit yourself on reports. You don't want to go crazy and expect yourself to track things that are hard for experts to track, you might as well start with the basics and grow from there. And when you have questions, you know, get them answered. But let's talk about what a conversion might be. We want people to go to the home page. Let's say we want them to do a property search. When they do a search, we want them to look at a page of a search, and then we want to have them schedule a showing. What this is typically called is a sales funnel, and it needn't be strictly followed. For example, they could come here to the details page and do a contact form. That doesn't mean they didn't convert. You can have, you know, kind of two paths, but typically or you could have it go to details page and the success point is scheduling a showing or doing a contact page. You could have them as one if you don't care which one they did exactly. The point here is not so much to have a cool chart as to see where the biggest bloodletting is. In other words, I'll tell you what's going to be typical for most people. They'd like more people to do a property search on their homepage. That's typically you're going to have 1,000 people here and 100 people do a property search. That's going to be your biggest drop-off, where you say, you know what, they're doing something other than what I want them to do. Maybe we can make this property search better, more visible, easier, something. Now I've got 1,000 people here and I've got 200 people doing a property search next month. Woohoo! I'm an internet marketing genius, right? So again, property search to the details page. Why are 200 people doing a property search and only 100 of them find even one property they want to see? That's kind of sad. Well, let's try the property search and see why it is causing this disappointment. Maybe the default sort shouldn't be most expensive to least. Maybe it shouldn't be newest to oldest. Maybe the picture should be bigger. Maybe the default criteria should be more narrow, so they're seeing only properties that aren't land, only properties that aren't rent. In other words, maybe we need to, anyway, you get the idea. I guess I kind of got into the weeds there a little bit, but by defining a conversion path or a funnel, it allows us to improve it. Okay, well, that's all fine and dandy, but how does this apply to us as real estate agents? Okay, well, let me show you. There are different kinds of goals. The easiest is a destination page, a thank you page. By far the easiest to track. Duration is okay, but real estate agents typically don't giantly care about that. Pages, their views it, or an event. An event is more of a technical thing. It's something that you send into the analytics when someone maybe does something like downloads a document or something like that. So the way you do this is you go into the goals section, and I'm going to show you this in a sec. You would select destination, like your thank you page. You would describe it very clearly, IDX thank you page, sign up thank you page. Destination begins with, and you type your URL. You don't type your root URL, you type only / and then everything else. Because remember, it's not typically recording your root domain in there. So let's take a look at that in the wild. And this is kind of amazing because it actually allows us to go look at the guts of this thing. It's really neat. First thing I want to show you is the real-time report, just to do a quick aside. This is wonderful. It lets you see right away what people are doing on the site right now, and it lets you confirm that your analytics is set up. The minute you do this, the minute you install your tracking code, it'll be 24 hours before it shows up here in overview, but it should be about 30 seconds before it shows up in overview for real time. So you can come over here, and the reason I show you this is because I want to show you that this is not in any way pie in the sky theoretical stuff I'm talking about. We're going to go to men's apparel, and let's click on this shirt. That's not actually a page, just this page is a page. So let's do this. This is a pretty nice little thing here. I've never quite seen a filter like that. Let's, so it basically refreshed this same page again. I'm going to go to the login. I'm going to go to the sign up. I'm going to go to the help. And then I'm going to come over here to real time. And I'm going to see, oh, look at this. Okay, I've got, what page was that, by the way, that I was on? Something about shirts, probably. Apparel men's. So I'm going to see, here's my home. Apparel men's is right here. I expect to see my sign in right here, and so on. And if you want to see them all active users, you can do this. And if you want to see that, like you miss it, you want to see active page views the last 30 minutes, you can do that. So I show you that just to say that, look, it's actually working. So if you were to set up your own goal in Google Analytics, the most common goal that you'd want to set up would be something like, let's see if there's we want the easiest thing, right? So I'm kind of looking for a contact us page, support page or something. Maybe here it would just be help or something. So let's say we want people to go to this page, and then they say, and then the page, when they submit their contact to us, it just says, it's a thank you page, something like that. So here's what we would take. We'd take this, we'd copy it, we come over to Google Analytics, and what I did here, I want to show you guys again, in case you forgot anything. I was over here, looked a little different, and then I clicked on admin, and this is where I see the information on the account. I go over here to the view that I'm looking at, and I can set up my goal. What I would do here is, I'm not allowed to set up goals here, but I think I can look at them. What I would do here is, let me go to a destination goal. Here's a destination goal. Okay, see this? I'm not going to do a regular expression or anything fancy or anything like that. What I'm going to do is just paste in this, and I can't paste it in here, so I'm going to do it right up here. I'm just going to paste in that thank you, and I'm going to call it something, very logical. I'm going to, for the description, I'm going to say it's a destination. For the page, I'm going to do that, and that's it. I mean, I can make a funnel where it actually shows, home page first, property page, search results. I can create all those steps in that funnel right there, and then I can see, oh, you've got a 30% completion rate or something like that. But you don't need to, and you probably shouldn't when you start out. And when you do create a funnel, there's an option, like, do you want to make it optional, or do you want to make it required, meaning that only people who follow the funnel would get converted, and usually you don't want to do that. You want to let people convert even if they got in a different way, even if they converted via somewhere else. So that's how you actually create them. Now, for real estate sites, many of them have wonderful thank you pages. IDX Broker in particular, you could just go and literally complete your own, and it's just for a second. You got to be quick, but it is something like, IDX, sign up, thank you, or something like that. You've got a thank you page. It's wonderful. You got a conversion, right? But also more common is that there isn't actually a page. It'll just refresh on the page, and that can be a little bit hard to track. The good news is that IDX vendors are getting better and better and better about doing something called events, meaning that even though it's not a technical page view, what they'll actually do there for you is trigger what's called an event. And let me show you how to go look at events. I think it's under behavior. Now, I don't even know that this account has any events, but I'm just guessing they do. Okay. Yeah, they do. So they've got so they don't have a contact page. They've got a contact event. However you happen to do it, maybe you submit a chat or whatever. Whenever you do it, they're going to fire off this contact us page. So the way that I do that is I come in here, and I very carefully copy the event category, okay, and I very carefully copy the event action, and if desired, event label. How did they contact us? By phone or by email? Now, when I go back to set up that goal, if I don't have a thank you page, which I often don't, and if I have events, which I increasingly do, I would set up a event that's a goal type of event. And it allows you to paste in each of those options. Each of those options that we saw, event category, event name, event label, you can put them all in there. Call it whatever exactly it is, contact us form completed, and boom, you've got a goal. So there's more than one way to create a goal. It's not all page views. You've got some flexibility, and if you have a developer, they can certainly create an event for you oftentimes where there isn't one where you need one. Now, let me jump back in here so you don't miss any of the good stuff. We've talked about how you would define your goals and create a goal even. And what I want to do here is just jump back in and show you, I realize we didn't show you how you see your goals. Okay. So to see your goals, you jump down here into conversions and you would go look at your goals. Now, remember, all goals aren't equal, and we see here that we have 15,000 goals. Woo! Does that mean we got 50,000 customers? Heck no. Look at, we got 2,000 visitors, and that's what we kind of think of, right? That's great. We got 2,000 registrations, and that's less great than purchases, okay? We got 7,000 engaged users, which could mean anything. It doesn't mean anything to me. It does to this webmaster, so that's totally fine. But you just have to, don't take this number at its face value. There's SMART goals. These are, I believe these are kind of automatic goals that are set up by Google Analytics, and they're not generally helpful for us. And you've got people who entered the checkout, and you've got people who obviously completed the checkout. So they're essentially doing a funnel here. If I went into this goal, I bet you anything I could see a funnel where I can see 3,000 people start, I can start to see why they leave, and I can start to identify what's going on. Let's talk about it. We've got, okay, of the 8,000 people, so I'm looking at this purchase completed goal, and they have a funnel here too. I see that 8,000 people started and 5,000 stopped. Here's where they went. 3,000 got to the next level. 600 stopped. Here's where they went. 2,500, here's what, you're seeing the pattern, right? And this is the goal. So I can identify, the one with the red is the one that has the biggest ultimate problem, although, and that just, helps you do it quick. So let's look at that goal of entered checkout just for fun, and let's see what happens here. This is an interesting goal. It doesn't actually tell me much, but it must be something, it must be obviously valuable to them. What they're saying here is 3,000 people entered the checkout, but it kind of seems to me that 8,000 people entered the checkout. If you're looking at this, unless some people can get to the cart without doing the checkout somehow, maybe they did the checkout last month and they still have it in their cart. Like maybe these are people who have, So it's all specific, and you can't read too much into it. But this stuff can be really helpful, and this allows you to drill down into it. Now, in terms of getting your reports out of here, you can always kind of look through and so on. One of the things that people like to do is they like to do something like, okay, I'd like to see this PDF. I'd like to, let's say you make the dashboard that you want, right? Okay, so this just exported the PDF. Maybe I want to email it. Maybe I want to email it weekly. I want to have a message. I want it to go to certain people. I want to do it as a CSV, or you get the idea, right? And you could set that up. But what if this doesn't have all the metrics on it that you want? So you end up having to, go here and do one page, and go here and do another report, and go here and do another report. Well, that's kind of a pain in the butt. So what they allowed you to do is create your own dashboards, and you can. There's lots of good examples and everything here. But if you go up here in your own account, what you could do is you can say create, and you could say something like import from gallery. And I think it's been a while since I worked on this, but I think you can search for virtual results here, and you can grab one of my Google Analytics dashboards designed for realtors. What this does for you is it puts most of the things on your dashboard that you want. You have to pick which view, what you're going to call it, but it obviously uses your data. So this is just a very common report. People usually want to know these things. How much from this and how much from pay-per-click. It breaks it down like that. How many leads by source. Now, if you don't have the leads on your website set up, it's probably just going to be 0 here. But it's kind of helpful because then when you do set them up, it will show up here. If you set them up as goals, it'll show up here, and you say, oh, well, that's very interesting, Ryan. Thanks for doing that. You can see your top visited pages, and you can elaborate on this. And obviously, the more leads the more goals that you add, they'll show up here. Now this says source medium, but I'm really only seeing source here. So let's show an example of, let's see, goal completions table. Let's see how this changes things, if it does. Look at that. Okay, way more helpful, right? So this is a mistake in the template. So first thing you can do when you do that is change it to source and medium, because that's way more helpful. I want to know that this is Google paid traffic, not any other funky paid traffic. Okay. Anyway, hope this is super helpful. If you wish, I believe you can always set up these reports to be emailed to yourself at regular intervals as well, and you can also share it. Although that's something you're probably not interested in. Anyway, you can do the similar breakdowns. You can adjust your timeline and so on. And this is how you could start to get some value over time out of your analytics. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. I know I've gone way over time, but I really appreciate your attention. And if any of you, obviously I'm going to make this available online, and look forward to, let me know if you enjoyed this. We'll do more similar and complementary webinars in the future if you do. Thanks a ton. Have a great day.